Welcome back, America. We're so lucky to have this next guest on the show. He is one of the most sage voices in Congress when it comes to security, food, oil, gas. He is a really trusted voice. He's Congressman Austin Scott of the great state of Georgia. Congressman, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, John and Amanda, great to be with you.
I want to start with the news that we all woke up to this morning, that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, is stepping down, had some scandals, is going to be forced off the stage. I think there's a lot in this for America. He seems to have been more forceful on Russia, Ukraine, and security issues than our own president, who's been leading from behind. Is there going to be a gap on the world stage for a while with the exit of Boris Johnson?
Well, I hope it's very brief. I hope that the party gets another candidate in there very quick, and that we secure that position very quick, because we right now, the NATO alliance, those that are working with NATO to help make sure that Russia does not expand beyond the Ukraine, and that we're actually going to get them pushed out of the Ukraine. We need this alliance to function, and that alliance requires leadership, and so we need this gap to be filled as soon as possible.
Yeah, so important.
Congressman, I wanted to hone in on this story that the Biden administration released 5 million barrels from our strategic oil reserve, not to the United States, to countries like Italy, India, China, the Netherlands. When we are only getting 1 million barrel a month, America last again with this administration. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so the reserve is down to, as I understand it, 1986 levels. It's not been that low since 1986. We're certainly facing shortages here inside the United States. We had the opportunity to import oil from Canada through the Keystone Pipeline. He canceled that while at the same time lifting the sanctions against Russia's pipeline. And now he's turning around and taking oil from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve and sending it to countries that are not our friends. And so he's going to go over across the sea. He's going to talk to people with the cartel of OPEC and ask them to pump more oil, is my understanding. And at the same time, he's turning around and taking our Strategic Petroleum Reserves. This is our reserve so that the United States can function in sending them overseas, and in some cases to countries that aren't even our friends. It defies logic. And I'm going to tell you, this is one of the things that when Congress flips and the Republicans take control of Congress, one of the first investigations we need to have is what was done and why it was done on this issue.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. It's a head scratcher to most common sense Americans. One thing that we don't seem to have a problem importing right now is fentanyl. The cartels are just pushing it across the border in such historic amounts. There was a seizure, I think, just a couple of days ago, enough to kill like 30 million people in a single warehouse in Mexico. It's flowing across. How big a deal is this? And is the Biden administration showing any efficacy in fighting it?
It's an extremely big deal. We lose more Americans to drug overdoses than we do to terrorism or anything else that we've had to deal with. Somewhere in the range of 6,000 Americans a month die from drug overdoses. That doesn't count the criminal element from the trade. So I know there's a group of parents who have lost their kids who are advocating for changing it to listing as a poison. I think that's a great idea, and I think that we at Congress and I think the states need to be looking at what we can do to increase the penalties for fentanyl. There's only one reason to import it into the United States, and that's to kill Americans. And so it's not being stopped. I mean, President Biden has not done anything to secure our border. And, this is the unfortunate consequence of the cartels knowing that they can do what they want to at our border.
Yeah, and I just want to springboard off of that because I think it's important for Americans to know the numbers. It was about 550 kilos. According to our own DEA, 1 kilo kills 500,000 people. That pans out to 275 million people. That's almost our entire country minus California and I don't know what a state with 15 million. Yeah, Illinois. It came from Sinaloa. It was seized. Yeah, Sinaloa, Mexico. We know that the Sinaloa cartel traffics directly to the United States. These are crime issues that are infecting all major U.S. cities, but I wanted to ask you about Atlanta because Atlanta is almost unrecognizable from when I used to live one state over in Alabama. Talk to us about that.
Hey, my wife and I, we had an apartment in Atlanta I was in the state legislature for a long time. She worked at a bank up there. We used to go to Lenox and Phipps Plaza on a regular basis. And I'll tell you, I haven't been there in years, and my understanding is that you have to go through metal detectors to get into either one of those malls now. Those were two of the nicest malls in the United States. And so this is a dangerous path that our country's headed down. And what you're seeing is people at the local level rise up and say, you know, we want to incorporate the city of Buckhead because if the Atlanta mayor is not going to provide police protection, then we need to be able to provide our own. And so it's very sad what is happening in this country where we're attacking, I should say, Democrat mayors are attacking law and order. And so Lenox and Phipps were two great bright spots, that area for Metro Atlanta. And now my friends tell me that they will not go into those malls. So you got to feel for the people that are out there working in those malls. They're the ones that are losing their jobs. And it's a bad situation, and you can't ignore it.
Yeah, it's just remarkable. I know there's one community, Atlanta, Buckhead, that's thinking of seceding. What do you think of that movement?
I think there's a process for that in the state of Georgia. I was on the Governmental Affairs Committee. I actually chaired it.
Right.
And so that's where the incorporations of cities come in, and I think they should have a public debate on it. And if the legislation comes through the state legislature, then they should be allowed to have a vote on it.
Yeah, very important.
Congressman, I wanted to ask you one quick question. We got about a minute left. Springboarding off of what we were talking about with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, gas prices this summer, I know in most of the country, I think the average is around $4.72, which is a pipe dream for those of us here in California. What do you expect to see with respect to that reserve?
Yeah, I think prices continue to stay about where they are. I think it's going to impact everything that we do inside the United States. I'm from the ag belt. Let me tell you something. They can talk about battery power all they want to. We farm with diesel. And the bottom line is your groceries get to the shelf, for the most part, coming with diesel in the trucks. And so the more diesel prices go up, the more we pay for groceries at the grocery store. And it is not something where the prices at the grocery store are leading to more profits for American agriculture. I promise you, the U.S. farmers would much rather see a lower commodity price with lower input costs, because they're very scared they're going to have the highest revenue they've ever had.
Yep.
And in many cases, the largest losses they've ever had.
You've been warning of this, sir, and I think we're headed towards that food crisis in the not so distant future. You're one of the first voices I heard that from. Congressman, always an honor to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today. Folks, after a quick commercial break, we'll be right back with former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's former advisor, Niall Gardner. You're going to love to hear from him. It's an interview you won't want to miss right after this.